Gladiator 2 is a historical epic which is a direct sequel to the original Gladiator. Both are directed by Ridley Scott, whereas this film came out in 2024. It is 2 hours and 28 minutes long, and that is the entire runtime. And it came out to a 82% audience score and 71% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. However, it has a 6.5 out of 10 rating on IMDb, so take that as you will. However, it profited well over 200 million at the box office overall worldwide, and it's also Denzel Washington's highest grossing film ever, which is kind of a crazy little stat I wanted to add in there. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about Gladiator 2, but specifically what I think about it being a worthy sequel to the original, which is obviously a masterpiece. So for the first segment of this video, I'm going to give a little summary on what the film is, and then I'm actually going to get into what I think is good and bad about this film, and then overall rating, and you know the vibe. So let's go. The story is set 16 years after the events of the first film, so that is 16 years canonically after the death of Marcus Aurelius. And we follow the little kid from that first film, now grown up, into this mighty warrior who is now the lead, Lucius, that little annoying kid from the first film. So the film starts with our introduction to Lucius and some dreams and shit he's having in this new place that he's in. And all that happens here is Daddy Pedro comes and invades this place that he's in, kills his wife, and takes him as a slave. This obviously doesn't tickle his fancy that much, and starts his revenge. And just like in the original Gladiator, Maximus had to fight in the fighting pits, not the actual coliseum, to prove himself to the other slavers. And this exact same thing happens, however, Lucius is fighting against baboons with loads of slavers watching. And as he murks all these baboons, he catches the eye of Denzel, played by Macrinus, not the other way around. We're then introduced to the syphilis-infected twin emperors who are off their tits. Gita, who is the main emperor, basically. He actually does the job of emperor and actually rules and has the power. And then there's just the gammy little thing that's Caracalla, and is the most horrifying little character I've ever seen in my life. And we see they're just absolute power-hungry wigs. So, yeah. And skipping on a little bit, Acacius, who is Pedro Pascal, is shagging Lucella, who is Lucius's wife. So the princess from the first Gladiator. He's now the wife of Acacius. And Acacius, Daddy Pedro, is a good guy. And he plans to overthrow these crazy twin emperors along with the help of this army that's waiting outside. And he's planning to just overthrow along with other senators and things. Lucella and Acacius then get caught for treason because one of those senators rats on them. And Pedro is forced to fight Lucius, who wants his revenge against him, in the Coliseum. Daddy Pedro then dies inside the Coliseum, but not by Lucius's hand. He dies by the guards' hand because the emperors wanted him dead, and this then starts riots among the people. And behind all this, Denzel is just scheming the entire time. They make it a point to make him the smartest motherfucker in every room he walks into. Every piece of air he breathes in is better than the air that you're breathing in, even though you're 3 centimeters away from the man. And he convinces the little ratty, snotty, wimpy emperor to kill Eddie from Stranger Things, his older brother. And this is literally so Macrinus, Denzel, can control him because he's an absolute idiot. He even ends up naming his monkey as his hand. They then make a game out of killing Lucius's mum, Lucilla, by having Lucius defend her against all these motherfuckers. However, Macrinus, being a little schemer he is, ends up killing Caracalla during all this craziness. And then he also ends up killing the mum with an absolute bullseye shot from a bow and arrow. This obviously prompts a chase, where Lucius then has a final battle with Denzel and kills him in a little river in front of 2 armies watching. And that's the entirety of the story. So yeah, there's a lot good and a lot not particularly up to scratch about this film. And like all sequels, you have to compare it and you have to see how it fares against the original on all the aspects, whether it's story, characters, overall context to see if it actually fits in the narrative of both the films, especially as it's a sequel, even though it's 16 years later. So first I'm just going to talk about the spectacle of it, because this is the main thing everyone talks about with this film, and they are 100% correct. I believe the budget of this was double what the original was, so yeah, you cannot deny it is a cinematic masterpiece. It looks incredible. All the set pieces are amazing. The CGI is iffy. Like the baboons and like the water scene and the ships and the sharks, a little bit much. Cannot lie. It looked a little bit flabby, mate. Yeah, wasn't the best I've ever seen in my life, especially compared to the other set pieces and practical stuff and the other things they had shown throughout the film. It just didn't add up, and it looked very much off comparatively. The actual characters and the acting of all the actors involved, great. Denzel was definitely a standout performance in this. And to be fair, a lot of people point at Denzel being like he had the best performance in this film, and it was standout, and he was clearly ahead and a level above the rest. But when I watched it, I was like, you know what? I really, really appreciated the Emperor's acting, Joseph Quinn, and forgive me, I do not know the other dude's name, and I ain't doing a cut right here to find out. But yeah, especially the other dude's name, I don't know, the wimpy little Emperor. I hated that little gammy twat. He was horrid. Just looking at him, he looks awful, little syphilis-infested little rat. But yeah, the acting of him, absolute wimpy little coward, and he played it incredibly. And Denzel is just some charismatic, just smart ass the entire time, and he does nothing else to convince you otherwise. He is just that, and he proves nothing else. And the guy that plays Lucius, I know it's Mascal, I don't know what his first name is, can't bloody remember. But yeah, his acting was great. I thought it was really good. So the performances were good. Now I'm going to get to the actual story. This is where it definitely falters. Like the overall structure of it makes sense. It's quite a basic character development-ish story of Lucius, like accepting that there are better things and coming into his own of who he actually is, and he is the heir to the actual throne. He's the blood heir from Marcus Aurelius, and he's living up to his potential and who he is. Basically that, and taking out the unjustness along the way. But here are the problems. The actual context and narrative links between the first film and then this one. But here's where the problems are, in the contextual and narrative links between the first film that carry along to this one. The main one being Maximus having a child with Lucilla, and that child being Lucius. Having Lucius be Maximus's son. Because that almost takes away everything about Maximus's character in that first film. Because he does literally everything he does. He takes over an emperor just from being a slave and a gladiator. He does all that for his family and for his wife and for his child. Like, basically, you're saying he cheated on his wife. It's like, okay, this man was more loyal than any man you've ever seen in your life. It's like, you're taking a lot away from his character if you're just saying he went off and shagged this princess. It's like, that ain't it. That ain't it. You're taking almost everything you did for that character, and you're just throwing it because you want a sequel. Adding to this, there are a lot of callbacks to the original film. And by callbacks, I mean physical props, places, and literal footage from the first film. They end up showing a lot of footage from that original film of Maximus and the little boy, well, Lucius when he was a boy, and Lucilla. Mainly Maximus, though. A lot of original darkened footage of Russell Crowe as Maximus in that from the original film. And then they obviously use the props, main ones being Maximus's armor, which Lucius ends the film wearing after killing Denzel. And I believe the main critique I've heard about this film is it seems a lot of the stuff in this film looks like stuff and plot lines and just scenes taken from other films and just added together. So it doesn't really work together. Like, there's almost in the contrast, like I said, with the CGI and how like off some of that CGI stuff looked comparatively to like the practical works and sets. Some of those things just look completely different and just don't really merge well. But when I was watching it, because I went to watch it in the cinema, and when I was watching it, I was generally just watching it for the spectacle, which is like the best thing you can do for this film, is to give it its whole, and to give the whole experience of watching this film, you have to watch it in a cinema, because yeah, it is an absolute spectacle and cinematic masterpiece, and that's truly just what it is. But yeah, the people that say it doesn't really fit, I don't ish. Like, that's really most I can say about that. It's like, it does and it doesn't, it might and it might not. But I do understand when people say like Denzel's playing Shakespearean, whereas like if you compare that to like Joseph Quinn and the brother, they're playing like the dumb idiots, and those like worlds don't merge that much. The main thing I'll say on that is I think it gave the right amount of separation between the characters, because obviously the emperors were they're trying to show that they're these crazy, out of their mind, power hungry imbeciles, and adding like that stillness and that commandingness that Denzel brings, it completely separates them, but I think it's effective to just show that contrast. So I thought it worked, but think what you want to think. So my overall thoughts on this film and my overall rating, because I actually really liked this film. I thought it was quite good. I thought most of the things that were there worked. I was mainly watching it for the spectacle. The story I thought was fine. There's nothing too much or too bad. It was just like, it's an alright, cool Ridley Scott visual masterpiece story. So overall, I would rate this an 8 out of 10. And that is the original score that I gave it immediately after I watched it, and I don't think that has changed. Because, yeah, like I said, I've given all my points as to kind of why and the critiques you could have against it. I just thought the spectacle that it is, the overall story, the set pieces, the practicality, and just the practical elements, and the acting, I really like the characters. And yeah, just all that combined, and the visual elements, and the callbacks. I did like the callbacks. Not the greatest things to kind of do, add actual footage of older movies into the old ones, because you're tugging at the nostalgia of fans when you do that. So it's kind of a cheap little trick to do if you actually add footage from the older beloved films into the sequels, because you're begging it at that point, is kind of what you're doing. But all that aside, I thought it was a really enjoyable, good film. Definitely better to see at the cinema because of, again, what the sort of spectacle that it is clearly its main selling point, is how good it looks, and what Ridley Scott can do visually is 100% the best thing about this film. But yeah, that's all I have to say on Gladiator 2. So thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and see you for the next one.